order. Good day, today is Tuesday, October the 14th. MPO Citizen Advisory Committee meeting is called to order. For a quorum or not of a lack of a quorum? No quorum. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is public comment. Meeting's over for public comment, including comments on any agenda items. There are three ways for the public to provide input to CAC. All comments received will be shared with committee members and made part of the public record. Any public comments? None received. All right. Nobody here with written requests. The next item is the approval of minutes of the September the 8th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September meeting?
Can't do it. Yeah.
No quorum, so we're going to move on.
And we'll take any comments or
Right.
issues you have, we can certainly make those, and then we'll bring it back to the next meeting.
I would comment that, for some reason, when I got the email, I couldn't open any of the attachments or anything. I don't know if it was somebody could resend it to me.
Sure. We'll check on that.
It might have been a glitch on my end, but if you try again, we'll know. See,
Yeah. I'll take a look at that.
thanks.
All right, before we move any further along the meeting, we have some new members. Let's just go around the table and introduce everybody. I'm Tom Ratsky, Vice Chair of the CAC.
I'm Eddie Abrams, past chairman, I guess, of the CSC.
And I'm Stephanie McKinnon from Sarasota.
Valley, Manatee County.
Pam Barr, Community Liaison with FDOT District 1.
Ray Dowling, new member, went from Manatee County.
Keith Green, Manatee County.
And by the way, I'm from Sarasota County at large.
And I will say everybody else in here is either MPO staff or an extension of our staff. So we're glad to have you all here today.
You want to introduce the new guys in the back or?
They will introduce themselves shortly.
Okay.
Ryan is presenting on our Ed Smith, and then we also have our Taylor,
Okay.
Emily Horn, so they'll be helping out here, just a minute.
All right, ready to move on? Item 5, action items.
We won't be taking action, but I do want you all to get the information that I provided for our TAC this morning as well, and we'll be going to the board on Monday.
That was the technical advisory committee this morning.
Yep, they got this presentation as well, and the board will be taking action October 20th. So, as you know, this has kind of been a culmination of a several year effort to update our long range plan. It's the foundational element of everything that we kind of do and plan for in the MPO area. So as you can see here on the screen, many number of steps that have been taken over the past 2 years or so to get us to this point of adoption. We evaluated socio and economic data within the region, took a look at our vision, goals and objectives, made an in-depth needs assessment of facilities out in our region, received revenue forecasts and projected forecasts for potential revenue for project funding, developed a cost feasible plan, which I'll get into a little bit more in depth here later, funded needs list, and then posted it for public comment. We are now at that point of adoption. Like I said, on October 20th, next Monday, we'll be taking this to the board for formal adoption. Some of the things that we did over the past several years, I almost want to get into more specifically, really the public involvement. Something that is really important, not just to this committee, but in general public, is getting our message across what we do here at the MPO. Making sure that we provide some level of empowerment in the process, that this is not just us disseminating and giving you information, but it's also a back and forth process. So how do you want to, move forward? Making sure it was multimodal in nature. We've heard a lot of comments over the past several years related to bike, ped, transit, not just how do we build for greater capacity within the region. That's something that we really wanted to focus on this time. Making sure that was collaborative. We've got so many partners, it's hard to even name, not just through the public, but also tons of other agencies, Department of Health, FDOT, Federal Highway, Federal Transit. Want to make sure that we're as collaborative as possible, so the end product is reflective of the needs of our community. And then scale and impact, making sure that we're fully aware of the moment that we're in and understanding that this is a 25-year process. It's not a near term, this will happen tomorrow. It is a long-term process, and making sure that those that were involved understood the scale of what we were working with. So some of the major phases and things that we did within those really were envisioning of scenarios, the goals and objectives, and then determining priorities. We followed a similar format for each of these. We developed an online survey, hosted a public workshop at those various locations, and then did a more public-facing outreach event. We found it's really important to make sure that we had solid checkpoints throughout the process to say if we need to revert and look at something else a different way. We were getting feedback early, often, and throughout the long-range development process. Some of the outreach tools that we used, one of the first for us, we developed our own microsite. That link there, it was a standalone site that allowed us to post a lot of our information outside of the NPO's typical forums. We developed campaign e-blasts, social media outreach, weekly newsletter that Grace helps put together and coordinate for us. We went out to public libraries, did media releases, as well as to television and radio interviews, pop-up events, etc. We tried to really navigate a far different number of channels to get our message out. Okay. Through the process, we also really looked at regular committee and board updates. I know you all have been a vital part of this process, along with the THC and the board, to provide feedback on a number of things that we've done. And we really want to make sure that when we get this, there's ownership by all parties when we get to take this to the board on Monday. One thing that we also wanted to highlight was we call them our town tours, but we took the opportunity earlier this year to meet individually with each of our elected officials in jurisdictions and their staffs to hear their perspective and what their local priorities are. So we did schedule some additional meetings as well and revisited some of these, but we think that's a key part to developing this plan. Is it's not just us looking at data and information and making those decisions, but really hearing from each of our jurisdictions as well. So one of the pages I mentioned previously, looking at socioeconomic data, this is kind of the underlying backbone or foundation of everything that we're doing here, is understanding where we're going and what that's going to look like over the next 25 years. We're going to add at least another 4 million people, north of about 1.28 million by the time we get to 2050. The darker regions there on the map are areas we're expecting to experience that growth the fastest. I don't think that's really a surprise to anyone in this room. We're northeast and southeast within our region, growing faster than lots of areas within the country. Not evenly distributed, but really trying to focus our resources in areas where we know we're so we're prepared. One of the new scenarios that was added this time around, we did continue to develop our previous scenarios for 2045, which are promoting high value growth, creating vibrant places, and preserving our environmental health. But we also wanted to take a look at how we create a more resilient community. Obviously, we're all impacted significantly over the past several years from major named storms. That's resulted in significant loss of personal homes, resources, community centers. And how do we push back against some of those things, especially in our key critical infrastructure? So that was a new scenario that we wanted to evaluate. We took a more abstract approach to creating our vision map this time around, and really wanted to focus on 4 main vital priorities. So looking at multimodal transportation to help ease congestion, as previously mentioned, preserving our natural resources, focusing on developing our urban areas, and then building more durable infrastructure to withstand our storms. This map here, as you can see, that kind of concentric bullseye symbology in the bottom there, those colors that coordinate to the type of project that would typically occur in that area. So as you can see, the blue is really looking at infrastructure condition and hardening. Orange or yellow there, sorry, is economy. Mobility and livability is purple. Safety are those red locations. And then the environment is out there in the green. There is also an underlying aspect or facet of that includes our bike ped trail system there, underlined in gray. So this is just supposed to be more of a large, 30,000 foot view of what we're doing at a regional perspective. Our goals and objectives remain similarly and unchanged. We did make some ADA compliance changes and changed some of the language to match federal law and regulation that's changed over the last year. So there's some minor updates to the goals and objectives, but very similar to what we've seen in the 2045 LRTP. One thing I did want to point out is that we are required by Federal Highway and FDOT to make the relationship very clear between what our vision and goals are. And as you can see, vision over there on the left-hand side, and then the goals specifically with the LRTP. So that's just one way to look at it. And then also the relationship of our preferred project types. These were taken out of our feedback from our outreach events and our surveys, and how those align with our 2050 goals as well.
Are any of those goals rated higher than others? Are they all pretty much equal?
There was some prioritization of those based off of feedback. Safety was a significant concern. And that's kind of how the scenarios were weighed out in the vision as well. There was some consideration given. Same with these project types that are here. As you can see, they kind of range from highest to lowest here based on concern by public feedback. And really, a lot of it had to deal with safer conditions and greater accessibility to different types of uses.
So your first glance, the more columns you mark, the higher
Potentially, yeah.
potential, but if one of those columns is a lot more higher rated than the other, it would.
Yeah, and there, we have an entire prioritization scale. This is more as a demonstration of how the project types that people elected, as being important, not with our Western plan in general. So it's just a means to demonstrate that in another way visually.
I couldn't see ADA, but
ADA is in every project that we do now specifically. I would say that these are general project types, but if you look at safer walking conditions, that is ADA is within that category. These are more generalized feedback on a survey of what would you like to see improved on our infrastructure. So that would be a given when we're looking at any kind of improvement going forward. I don't want to go too far into numbers. This is here as a reference point of one major notation I did want to make is that one category of funding source that's X'd out there is carbon reduction. That was withdrawn by our state and been given back. So we will not have that. We wanted to be clear. One of our prior projections did include that as a funding source. That will not be used going forward, and we don't envision that being resolved anywhere in the future. So that was removed. The one on the top, really the only differentiating factor you need to know here is the MPO specific funds are above that line, and district wide, meaning District 1 allocated funds for our region are below that line. All in all, some of the larger findings, this is just more information related to our state and federal constitutional fuel taxes. Those are all mandated and provided directly by FDOT on what we can spend for those things. The one kind of large takeaway here, I've brought this up at other meetings, is that we're experiencing a pretty significant decline in projected revenue sources for transportation improvements. Relative 50% decrease over our 2045 forecast. Some of that was lack of foresight, I think, coming out of COVID, and then also some misforecasting done at the highest levels. So this is, I think, an overcorrection in some cases. I don't think it will be this severe, but I think it's something that they wanted to be very clear about at the state level and federal level, that there will be less resources available in the near future. One thing I will note, those bars on the left-hand side for Manatee and Sarasota County look significant. About 50% of that, though, is being used for other things. So as you can see, their debt service, so paying down on their bonded projects, operation and maintenance, as well as other infrastructure, stormwater, et cetera. So those bars are also cut in half, but they do have a significant role in local government in planning out a lot of these projects. So a lot of our major capacity improvements, a lot of the bike ped trail system, ADA compliance, a lot of that does fall onto the counties as well, and we're working close with them to prioritize those projects.
So, Ryan, so now, are you showing that, say, there's bars, and are they representing the actual funding, and that is 50% less than what?
Our bar on the right hand side is about 50% less than it was last time.
That's what, okay.
And the two on the left are, I would say, significantly higher. I would say probably 30% higher than the 2045 for the two counties.
So the local community
Has increased.
have had to increase
Correct.
to make up for the lack of
Yes,
state and federal funds.
yep. So the crux of a lot of this is developing our cost feasible plan. Ultimately, it's a zero sum game, right? You have to balance our projected revenue with project costs. That's really what the purpose of the long range plan is to do, is to prioritize projects, determine a path forward for them over the next 25 years. How we do this is we take a look at all of our MPO studies that you're all very closely involved with, based off of our town tour meetings that I previously mentioned with our local agencies, as well as through our 3 public outreach events. This all culminated in a review by our agencies, the Department of Federal Highway. They did a technical review of the cost feasible and deemed it eligible to be moved forward. What goes into creating that? There's 3 main processes that have to go under, to develop a cost feasible plan. One is to develop a pipeline of projects. Those are any projects that currently have a phase funded in the work program or project development. It can be at any phase, it can be all the way to planning, all the way through construction. We just have to develop a path forward for those projects. We also establish, we call them modal improvement programs, but they're around a specific type of projects that allowed us to set aside funding to address those projects over the 5 years. We also took a look at proportional funding, meaning that there was a cost efficiency standard taken into account, where basically we did a cost benefit analysis to say, is it reasonable to invest X amount of money if the return is this? In some cases, it can go up or down, right? It could be relative to, if it's a high cost improvement, hopefully the value is also very high. So that's the kind of relationship that we took into account. We also developed, as previously mentioned, but not included here, an unfunded needs list, which takes in all local projects, everything that could potentially be funding using other funding sources, discretionary grants, et cetera, to fund those out in the future. We want to make sure they're in there so we don't have to amend or update our plan too quickly in the next several years. So that's how we get to creating a cost feasible. I will go briefly into each of these. Obviously, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We'll do our best to answer them now, but I want to dive in just to some high level examples of what was included in each of these programs or pipeline. The pipeline, as I mentioned, is now 31 projects. 20 are on the state highways, and 11 are on local facilities. Those are the sources. You'll see a lot of those be repeated. I'll list them now. The 2045 CFP is our last long range plan. Local priorities are from conversations and the feedback we've received from our local agencies. And then the LECOM bonus study was a prior neighborhood study that we've done in citizen cost feasible, was an FDOT related strategic intermodal system cost feasible. That primarily for us is I-275, I-75. So some of the projects that can get identified or you can think about when you're looking at these types of pipeline are things that are underway. So we have an active transportation and active management systems master plan, our Stereo 79 MERT, which is our multi-use regional trail, and Boulevard of the Arts. These are all projects that are funded in some capacity over the last several years. The goal is to see those projects completed through construction. So whatever we have to do in the next 20 years, get them there. That's good for this pipeline. Capacity, as you can see here, very costly. There's not nearly as many capacity projects identified in our long range plan because we are stuck to that set of specific revenue. There are 4 on the state highway system and 4 on local roads. This is primarily made up by feedback from our local agencies as well as our previous cost feasible plan. Some examples of these are out there on Clark, State Road 72 from I-75 to Lorraine, and then Fort Hamer. Also, you can see 64, Lorraine Road extension, as well as Buckeye up there to the north as well. So these are all large scale, long-term capacity improvements. Intersection program really primarily looks at state highway system. Those would be the areas that fail quicker and have greater issues at our intersections. Those are similar sources, but primarily looking at roundabouts or signal timing at those types of intersections. So 41, MLK and Myrtle is brought forward by the city of Sarasota, 9th Street, as well as 64 and Gulf Drive out there on the beach. So these are all smaller scale, but significant improvements that need to be looked at to create greater efficiency at our intersections. Resiliency, I specifically mentioned that as a focus area. We identified a number of projects primarily on the state highway system. And really were based off of findings on our resiliency and vulnerability assessment. Some of those projects include 301 up in Palmetto, 681 Suburb Boulevard down in Northport. All were tier 1 facilities in our vulnerability assessment, and will require significant investment. As you can tell, those are only 7 projects there. Those are all quite expensive as well. Our multimodal program, I would say, primarily made up of bike ped, transit improvements, 17 on local facilities. These are local facilities that state pretty much does not have funding for outside of our funding. So you'll notice the disproportionate number of our projects, our money being spent on these local road projects. Sometimes that's the only source of funding for these. Some of the projects that would be included in here, Palmetto Trails, Northern Palmetto, Venice Ave down in Venice, and Lockwood Ridge, kind of connecting the region across the center there. As you notice, a lot of these are bike ped facilities and really, are vital to addressing a lot of our other safety concerns as well. Safety program, as I just kind of mentioned, these are based on safety statistics, and as you can see, they're highly concentrated in the Manatee County region. Just so happens we get a disproportional number of safety issues, both fatalities and serious injuries occurring in the middle part of Manatee County. As you can see, that's very, very relative and very clear in this segment. Do you have a question? No? Okay. This is primarily made up of our high injury network. So based on the data that we've seen on our high injury network, our congestion management process, which also looked at signal management and operations, as well as local needs in our last LRTP. Some of these include 41, Cortez, Bee Ridge, all high crash locations and known for a lot of our system involved.
What are the causes of the crashes?
You name it, everything. I would say specifically in those main areas, it's a lot to do with pedestrians and bicyclists and access to major commercial areas. So how do you get to and from, if you're not in a vehicle, how do you get to and from the store, from some of these other major commercial areas? You'll see the state's approach, a lot of those is shutting down a lot of our center turn lanes. We used to call them suicide lanes. Center turn lanes are creating a lot more medium facilities to kind of reduce the number of conflict points. You get out to Cortez and 41, endless number of conflict points with people walking and crossing across that section. So we're very clear and aware of what those are. It's how do you also address it from an engineering standpoint, but also a behavioral one. A lot of that has to do with safety education and how we get people aware that it is dangerous to be doing some of these things that they're doing out on the roadway. Sure.
14th Street, when these things, they're parallel to each other.
That is not that's US 41, not 14th Street. Prior to that, it's south of when it crosses Cortez. It's just a segment
Right.
within that, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so all of, I would say everything from right out here, from behind us right here, all the way through north to downtown Bradenton is currently being evaluated or being invested in or sidewalk improvements. So
Yeah.
that is happening and it's, yes, and we've got about, I think it's in 2027 now, so there's about $35 million programs on US 41 from down here, Bay Drive all the way up to 69 in Cortez. So that is been a long-standing project that we will be, that's
public hearing. This public hearing that we have will happen during Monday, October 20th, which will be next week, through Friday, October 24th. And then those are done virtually, and then there's a face-to-face one that will be actually on the 24th, which is Friday. That will begin at 11 a.m. It will be simultaneously at both our Bartow office, District 1 Bartow office, and also the Swale office, which is off of Daniels Parkway. And you're welcome, if you have any questions or you have any concerns, you can get more information both from the MPO or contact me.
Is the 5-year plan on your website?
Pardon?
Is the 5-year plan on your website?
Just got it.
We just got the snapshot. I sent it to the MPO. And then,
We sent it out this week. So we're gonna do some summarization for everyone to say what was, as you just.
that has a summary of changes.
Always important and what should be paying attention to, so that'll be going out later this week.
Do we have a video?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just give me a second here, is the audio?
Pam's gonna narrate for us.
I can't do the music right now. There we go.
Over 22 million people calling Florida home and 137 million more visiting our great state every year. Reliable transportation infrastructure is integral to our state's economy, livability, and resiliency. Stable and long-term planning to meet the transportation needs of residents and visitors is the primary responsibility of the Florida Department of Transportation. Florida's multimodal transportation system includes roadways, bridges, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, airports, seaports, spaceports, rail lines, and transit. State and local transportation officials work together to develop plans and innovative strategies to improve safety and mobility for all users. These plans are carried out by a 5-year work program. The FDOT consists of 7 districts and the Florida's Turnpike Enterprise. The work program is developed through these districts, working with local governments, metropolitan planning organizations, other agencies, and the public. The work program contains projects in different stages: planning, project development and environment, design, right-of-way, construction, and maintenance. Through the work program process, the state's transportation priorities are established. After work program public hearings are held in each FDOT district, public comments have been accepted, local governments have endorsed the plan, and the Florida Transportation Commission and state legislators have approved it. The official 5-year work program is adopted by the Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation on July 1st, first day of the state's fiscal year. As FDOT develops and updates each year's work program with residents and government partners, it is understood that next July 1st, the current year of the plan is complete and a new 5th year will be added on. The yearly update produces the new tentative 5-year work program. The work program assures we have a prioritized program of transportation choices that result in a better quality of life for the residents and visitors to this beautiful state.
Do you have any questions regarding that?
So we will get the data that goes in
Into the work plan,
this,
correct.
this
It
coming.
will be,
Yeah, I know, I've seen it before, we've had it.
Yeah, we just want to make sure it's all
Gotcha.
kosher.
that we're all on the,
Yep, same page, and there was a few things that the state was tidying up, and then we'd like to do a little summary that goes with it, so that.
Gotcha.
So that we can point out the major projects that were either funded or removed or. That'll be out later this week.
And I'm guessing we have another meeting of our committee before July 1st.
Of next year.
Yeah, next year.
That will be in January.
And there's projects that come in and out of the program until then. This is just the main, basically the guts of the program for this next year. But there will be earmarks that wind up coming through and will be put into the program.
When she says earmarks, what she means is this goes to the legislature as part of the state budget. And the legislators sometimes will change things around beyond and it's different from what FDOT has promised and committed to. And so then they have to adapt, and that's why we see projects move around a little and surprises. And sometimes it takes longer to get what was planned done, but other things get done. So, you know, moving forward, put a lot of additional funding into I-4 and across the state, a few other places here, including Fruitville Road and what was the other big project? Which one?
70 Burnside.
70. So, you know, we got some benefit out of that, but it came at the expense of some of the other projects that were initially planned.
Came out of transportation fund. But then on the other side, there's the different grants that are out there, and I forgot to mention this at the TAC. But Sarasota did receive funding for River Road. The transportation plan PD&E for over $2 million from the freight grant.
Which road was that?
It's for River Road.
Oh, the I-75 end of River Road or the other side on the other side of 41.
I think so. This says River Road.
Yeah. South.
So.
Going toward.
So funding that is making its way into Sarasota and Manatee. And that will be something that should show up eventually in our work program. It may be in there, it may be in this one.
I mean, the city of Sarasota has a grant on
Raise
10th,
Raise grant from Boulevard of the Arts, they got about $12 million from the feds for that as well. And Seaport Manatee got another $10 or $12 million for grant. So those are some of the major federal grants that they received over the last year. I would also add that when you look at this work program, there's not going to be a lot of changes or a lot of additions. So I think a lot of that has to do with reauthorization. They're careful in what they do in reauthorization years. They kind of wait to see. A lot of these projects you'll see are getting ready to be then kind of fully funded or deployed. Dave mentioned a lot of them getting them, we call it shovel ready, but even kind of beyond that, having them being able to be funded immediately, construction to start immediately, following reauthorization. So if there's new formula-based programs or new discretionary programs, the state will be ultra competitive in, they'll make sure they have those projects ready to go. So I would say this is kind of a wait and see here. You'll see some of the major things that we'd like to see, like ped things, some fundings of some major projects for bike ped, large scale stuff.
Right.
I think bridges, capacity, all of those will be coming, I would say, in the next several years.
Ryan, is there a need for us to be lobbying in Tallahassee? I mean, obviously the leadership is in our favor now. But is there a need for us to be doing it?
Yeah, cities and counties, so MPOs do not lobby. Cities and counties, though, they do on our behalf, right? And I think for their priorities, MPOs are a intermediary. If we don't lobby for or against any of those, we take what you all and what your jurisdictional staff put forward and we apply those to the process. Yes, they do. They actively are involved with Senator Boyd and recruiters and et cetera. They're leveraging their positions in either House Senate subcommittees, transportation subcommittees. So yes, that will be the goal. I think City of Bradenton's been effective in doing that. They will continue to invest time and resources into lobbyists, see what they can get while we do have leadership positions.
Also, all the earmarks come.
right?
Yes, it's through.
It's directly done, but yes.
You as individuals can go and
Lobby yourself.
lobby, you know, not as professional lobbyists, but I would recognize Pat Simmons as someone who has appeared in front of many of the local governments within the region and has made her mark and made a difference in the understanding of the issues that she brings out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question for both Ryan and Pam. You said that the funding for carbon reduction was taken out.
Yes,
Early on in the previous administration, there was the requirement for the states to do charging program long-term. Is that dead? So those projects will not be implemented that will be put into.
At least ones that were funded by, that were
By that,
eventually funded by that. And, you know, those are all to be seen, right? A lot of those dollars are not as simple as, it haven't seemed like it's as simple as getting the money back. Can't really do that either. It's legislatively slated for a specific purpose, so the state is trying to figure out how to do that, right? You can't just give back $200 billion. It's more of a repurposing, reallocating for the necessary and more reasonable priorities. The state.
A lot of states went with a public-private kind of approach.
Yeah.
That.
And even
obviously
we did,
the public part doesn't get funded then.
no, even we did, I mean, we had racetrack, other major private entities reach out to us to evaluate the possibility of those grant programs go away. Those opportunities typically go away.
Right, question for you, and maybe I just misunderstood, in the last administration, there was such hype on the amount of infrastructure money that came down, so.
50% of that was entirely discretionary, meaning competitive grant program. So you had to apply to, it's a budget ceiling. It's not a guarantee, right? Like we as a state, as an MPO, or, you know, especially in this reauthorization, are pushing for formula-based funds, which is how we operate and is our main mechanism of funding projects. Having you spend 6 figures to go and provide an application for a competitive program where you win less than 5% of the time is probably not the best use of state and federal resources trying to get down this so-called new money. That was a proven challenge. And something that I think most states, MPOs, local governments were not really either prepared to do or have the resources or staff time to do. So that is one thing you'll see out of state legislature, out of many of the organizations that were involved in AMPO, it's our Association of MPOs, ACTO, ASHTO, all these acronym organizations that are pushing for greater formula-based, less discretionary. Let's minimize the number of processes that we have to go through to access this money and get it out to the places where we actually need it. So that is kind of the underlying reason.
I appreciate transparency. Did you spend a good deal of your time prioritizing projects and then a discretionary program comes in completely
and we have to
undermines the.
That, and we have to determine which ones would be viable for us to then go after and determine who's on our staffs and who's on DOT staff is going to find the time to then adapt to whatever that applicant looks like. Yeah.
All right, off track. All good. You ready to move on to the?
Yeah, we can move.
You done, Pam?
unless anybody has any questions,
Any other
but
questions for Pam? Thank you.
go ahead.
So the next item is 6BI. The Ed Smith Mobility Study. This is Ryan from Kimley Horn.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for the intro. Ryan Suarez again. Here to provide to you a status on the Ed Smith Mobility Study. I'm gonna do my best to make this a little bit shorter than this morning for the TAC. We've been here for about an hour. This is what we're gonna cover today. It sounded like there's a few new members. So you probably missed out on some of the analysis that's been completed. So we'll get to a slide there and I'll touch on that so that way you have just a brief overview of what we've looked at. But since we last met, which was May, it's a short list, but there's been a lot of work that's gone into that third bullet, identifying corridor by corridor projects. We've also been working with city and county staff. Am I not, what if I come over there on that side?
No.
Okay.
I'm just asking you to speak up.
Okay, I've been told I'm soft spoken, so I'll just, thank you very much. Where was I? We have coordinated with city and county staff on the identification of projects and recommendations. We've also got out and completed some outreach with the Park East neighborhood, which really makes up a large portion of our study area. There's a slide to that effect and I'll describe it. Here, we just got the project schedule. all I want to say here is that we are in fact on track with the original schedule of the project. Our efforts to maintain consistency with the LRTP adoption, which occurred today here with this group and going to the MPO board on Monday. So to the study area, for those that are not familiar, the Ed Smith Mobility Study Area. On the north, we have 17th Street. On the south, we have Fruitville Road. To the west, US 301, and to the east, we have Beneva. The color coding really just is an organization of city, county, and state roadways. 2 are state roads, US 301 and Fruitville. 4 are county, Tuttle, Lockwood Ridge, Beneva, and 17. And the remainder, as you see here, are city roadways. And we organized this as such because it was the best way for us to really organize our project recommendations. So hold on to that thought for just a second. One of the outcomes and the deliverables as part of the project is this multimodal improvements toolkit. We've identified different types of fixes to be applied within the corridors in the study area. This is a little bit different than maybe what others have seen in the past. Everything that's being recommended in the Ed Smith study area is described and defined with an image within this toolkit here. We did our best to also provide implementations and fixes that are consistent with what's already been done in this area, city of Sarasota, Sarasota County, and the Tampa Bay region in the past. Hence, you see an image that's associated with a lot of these improvements. That's also a local image, let's put it that way. So for those who weren't here before, we've gone through a lot of information, a lot of analysis, and this is really just a subset of some of the items that we've looked at. The traffic analysis, bike stress level, looking at ons and offs for bus ridership, all of that funnels and is fed into our quarter by quarter projects. I believe in your packets, you have project sheets, which are a graphic illustration, really a summary for the types of improvements that have been defined and recommended by location, by segment for each quarter in the study area. Now, there's a lot of information in there. Okay? So in the original slide for the agenda, it's going to cover project deliverables. It'll take me forever to go through all the different recommendations. And the reason why we have so much detail, speaking to staff, thinking about implementation, we definitely wanted to focus on what are low-hanging fruit, what we can do in the short term. So you can think about this in terms of short-term, midterm, and long-term groupings of projects. So that way, again, things that can be done at a smaller scale can move into implementation a lot more quickly. So the tabular information is by intersection and by segment. To facilitate review and allow folks an opportunity to look at what's being recommended for all of these quarters, we do have a dashboard, and we're working with MPO staff. We have an idea how to make that very easy off the project website, where folks can drill down by location, by project type, by segment, and be able to view the listing of different types of projects that are recommended again for every quarter in the study area. I got an image of that in a coming slide. So one of the things that we were asked to do was come up with visualizations for, let's call it a full build out for select locations on some of our corridors. In this rendering, let's call it, we're looking on 17th Street, we're looking west, just past Euclid. And when you take the before, add the different recommended multimodal transportation fixes on the slide, the rendering is what the potential fix will end up looking like in the field. We've further gone and tied these renderings to what's illustrated and shown in the toolkit by way of this legend here and the nomenclature that's shown. So just for an example, in terms of this particular one for 17th Street, you see the median. On the south side of 17th Street, this particular location has enough right of way for us to add a wider sidewalk. 17th Street is a high bike stress facility, so by moving those folks off of sharing the same pavement space with cars, we move them off the road. It's just a lot safer. It's a lot less stress for those folks who choose to ride their bikes or to walk for that matter. I'll go to shade. I got 3 of these, so that's the first one. Shade Avenue, it's been identified by the city, in their multimodal connections plan. And also, so the focus being just multimodal, context sensitive solutions for, facilitate pedestrian and bike travel through these neighborhoods. How many of you are familiar with the 8th Street walkway? Which connects Tuttle out to, I think it's Aspinwall?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, is it Aspinwall? No one's familiar with that? Okay, it's making, that's a multimodal path that makes use of right of way. And all it is, it's a lighted, landscaped, wide sidewalk. And it's well utilized by the community, especially those folks who are taking their kids over to Tuttle Elementary. So think about that in terms of here in this area of the community. You see shade, this is an unpaved section of shade. The idea is to do something similar with a wide sidewalk to facilitate those movements. Got this here. Similar to the 17th Street concept, we've got ABC indicating the improvements that are tied to the toolkit for this particular location. I have one more, Lockwood Ridge. So Lockwood Ridge, within our study area, again, this is the section of Lockwood Ridge, which is 2-lane between Fruitville Road and 17th Street on the north. Looking at capacity, looking at the level of service on this roadway now and in the future, there really isn't a need right now to add additional capacity to Lockwood Ridge. Again, we went back and forth with county staff on this one. And the recommendation that's shown here, oh, wait a second. Out of order. Here we go. Lockwood Ridge is, we do have enough right of way on Lockwood Ridge, particularly on the east side, to add a wide sidewalk in addition to a buffered area between vehicular travel and that multimodal path. And still space to be able to add sidewalk on the west side as well. So there's only a couple of parcels where there's some intrusion into the right-of-way space that we might need, but for the most part, we believe that this is the right fix in terms of providing that the opportunity for different types of users for this stretch of Lockwood Ridge. The dashboard. So here's an illustration of the dashboard. This is what it looks like. It's got these handy dandy filters. I'll have to credit our GIS folks in developing this. You can drill down by location, and each time you drill down, if you drill down to a specific location, it zooms into that intersection or segment. And by that way, folks can click on dots and be able to see a listing of the types of improvements that are being recommended at that location. So we'll, again, to repeat, we'll work with MPO staff to be able to disseminate that. And folks can review, take a look, and provide comment back to us. Next steps, implementation, we are working to prioritize. This is something that was emphasized to us by county staff, and it is much appreciated. Given that as project sponsors, city, county, they will look to the MPO to fund these projects. We just had a long conversation about that in terms of the MPO long-range transportation planning process. So we're going to apply that same MPO prioritization tool that's available to score and rank these projects relative to each other and kind of get ahead of that for folks for county and city staff that perhaps may want to move some of these projects forward into the LRTP priority projects process. We've organized these things by quarter, by segment. There's also a piece here that indicates intersection, back to what I said before about smaller scale projects. I do want to put just a kudos here to city staff. We have a lot of locations where all we're asking for is, hey, let's just restripe this crosswalk. It looks poor. If we had better high visibility crosswalk striping, it will make it safer. Cars will stop where they need to stop. People will know where their space is, at least pedestrians and cyclists will be. And staff has gone ahead and used the click to fix tool that's available through city website to add those restripings to the list of improvements that, of course, Public Works will take care of when they have time and resources. Cost estimates are also under development. I think as it stands, we're gonna fold this into a draft report and work to have this completed by the end of next month with a draft report to staff. So that is a product that all of you here should probably look forward to. Given that there's no meetings till January, probably, you may not see me back until that time. And at that point, we'll probably be reporting to you some final elements of the plan. So with that, I will close. Thank you for having me and entertain any questions.
I noticed on the one slide that you showed vegetation, which is very pretty. Yeah, that's a good one. Here in Florida, especially, vegetation grows all year round. And just like we need to get a haircut from time to time, it takes maintenance.
Yeah.
How are we funding and making sure that happens?
Yeah, maintenance would have to be funded locally. Yeah. You are right. Anytime we put in vegetation, street trees or anything like that, yeah, there's a maintenance involved.
And the city was ultimately supportive of that, so I would say that's something that would have to be worked out, on an ongoing basis. Fully agree that, it's a continuous ask, right, is for greater street trees and people don't want to walk down sidewalks.
We have recommendations to that effect. Because when you're putting together a municipal budget and people want to cut, the first thing to get cut is things like that.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure it happens to you? You fund it initially, how do you do it?
How do you do it?
How do you make sure there's funding that it actually gets maintained?
It's a really good question. We've itemized all these fixes, Carl, and if street trees get cut, then that's that's a deduction off the overall cost of perhaps this scenario. Let's put it that way. So
yeah, it's about the balance of what you want to prioritize when it comes to that. Like you go out there today. There isn't a lot of vegetation. There's a sidewalk over there, but is it people actually utilizing it for that? So that's a cost benefit that the city would have to work with us on, as well. We want to provide better facilities. Typically, the average request comes with, we want better shade, we want better ways to get around. So I agree. There is, is there an off the top transportation budget that you keep on the side to be able to ensure funding for those types of things? You use ad valorem, sales tax, there's lots of different ways that you can set it up in a county budget, or city budget. Fortunately, that's not entirely up to the MPO. We can provide those as resources, as Ryan says. If they go in and say that to your effect, well, we don't want to have to worry about funding and maintaining shade trees. That comes out of the project.
But presumably, if the city has been supportive of the project as it's been presented with vegetation and things like that, then they're looking at it with the eyes wide open that there's an ongoing maintenance, and they have figured out ways to put it into their budgets. I mean,
we'll always work to recommend kind of the highest level of service, let's call it that, for lack of a better phrase. When it comes down to design, implementation, O&M, that's when things change a bit.
Maybe what Carl's saying, the wording of the report should say that those types of high-end improvements will require maintenance, long-term maintenance. That you take into consideration.
There's an example that comes to my mind. years past where we had developers building stormwater facilities. They're real nice, but they had to be maintained. They didn't get maintained and they clogged and they didn't work. And so subsequently, we made the land developers fund in advance the maintenance, they'll make sure that in fact they do get maintained. So I'm wondering is, do we have any recommendations that we can make similar kind of structure to the, so the beauty we put in it actually stays and is maintained?
I've seen those types of developer required O and M. Sometimes it's like for the first year or for the first 5 years, depending on the type and scale of development. This is existing right of way. It's very residential. And then, of course, that happens piecemeal, right? Because it would only be the stretch of roadway that fronts my property or my new hotel or development. So, yeah, and it is probably a reason the MPO doesn't fund. You can't get funding through the MPO for landscaping and street trees.
It's a good reason for that.
You raise a really good.
Ever since I've seen this study on the agenda, since it started, Ed Smith's mobility study, I think it's spring training baseball in the stadium. How much has your study revolved around the traffic issues, parking issues for the 16 or so spring training games ahead?
No, I knew this question was gonna come up, right? Well, what about Ed Smith, right? Well, we went out there for a couple of games and observed, and we've done intersection LOS, level of service analyses for, I wanna say it's 15 plus 6, 21 intersections. It's this entire study area. At first, the Orioles run a really good operation. It runs really smoothly. Parking is not an issue. Parking is not an issue there. And that was visible to us even at their A games, which are like Yankees games. And we were there for Thursday afternoon Yankees game and for a Saturday Tampa Bay Rays game. There weren't any issues, parking issues for those games. I think they were very close to being at capacity in their north lot, but there was still some space available over at the youth athletic complex. So getting in and out of there, traffic, there were queues. There were really only 3 real queues: northbound on Tuttle, westbound on 10, and then westbound on 12. And really, that was probably only for about, let's say, 30 minutes, 40 minutes prior to the first pitch. Once the first pitch, really traffic was pretty much cleared out. And then after the games, there really wasn't a whole lot of traffic. Baseball is such, people are leaving. They're after the 6th inning, I mean, it's just well spread out. So there really weren't any traffic queues towards the end of any of those, either of those games, either. So what we've recommended, there is a separate section that's gonna go into a report with recommendations on how to improve some of the traffic flow, because it's a lot of folks are focused on the east lot and the north lot, when in fact you have the Carl Ripken lot that it stays available and unfilled, is that the right term? So with some signage, we think that you might be able to clear some of this queue down on Tuttle by directing folks to other parking, not just the north lot. But in the same, going westbound on 12, if folks would just, make a right and turn into, or coming south on Tuttle, make a left, Cal Ripken, they might be able to avoid the traffic queues on 12 trying to get into the lot. So there just might be some simple fixes.
And to tie that with your dashboard of a walking path that is one of your improvements that would connect that block to. I don't know if we have one, but
There's actually 2 mid-block crossings that we've got in our plan too. 12, because we did see a lot of scary stuff here just north of 10th. Because of the traffic queues that were happening here, there was pets, people with their kids in hand, bike riders, just dart across 10th and across all that traffic. So we do think that there's probably a need for a mid-block crossing that folks could make use of in order to get to and from the games. Same thing north of and near 15th as well, because we did see just some activity there that didn't seem safe. Instead of using 12th Street signalized intersection, they were again just darting across the street.
Maybe we convince Google we do not to the stadium itself, but to your parking lot, direction you're coming from.
Yeah,
It's real, just because I don't know the process, once this study is done, what's then the plan for funding and or construction or implementation of the study?
well, there's the low hanging fruit, there's the short term stuff. And we're working with staff to see how many of those we can add to that click base. But then you are gonna have longer term projects that are gonna cost a lot more money. And those are things that as sponsors, city and county will have to either apply whatever they have in their CIP or look for bigger pots of money through MPO project process.
Yeah, and several of the projects identified in the programs that I mentioned earlier include recommendations. So some of the larger scale, as you mentioned, 10, 12, some of the major roadway improvement type projects that the city probably can't confront on their own. We've made recommendations to include those in our long range plan.
So some of they're funded in a very.
In a various means, some could be,
ways.
as Brian said, some could be a public works maintenance plan that goes out tomorrow and use, paintbrush to fix some of these things, all the way up to
Well, they use a machine.
a roller. But you get the point. Up to $100 million project,
Thank you.
that's the scale at which we're working. They can be all over the board.
Yes, ma'am.
Comment about your slides. If you go to the sidewalk ones,
The renderings,
no, keep going. That,
this one?
No.
This,
that,
gotcha.
I see people on bikes, that's great. You might want to consider if you ever do this again. Adding people in wheelchairs
That's a great idea.
and,
We did that here.
white canes.
Yeah, we didn't do that here. We have kids and we have a dog walker. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. Appreciate that comment. We should do that. Yeah, and all of this would, of course, have to be built to spec 88. So. I know it's assumed, but you're right. We should probably.
Yeah.
Make that.
That seems to kind of be the theme of tonight, is everything's kind of assumed, but it's better to have it where people can see, hey, look, that sidewalk's wide enough for me to use my wheelchair, maybe I will go to the meeting.
We do want. And the whole idea is all users, right? All user types. So, yeah. Tom, you had another question? right?
No, that's it. It's the baseball part. Any other questions? Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thanks,
Everybody's right. All right, next item is Nina presenting on the 2026 fall projects.
Thank you. So this also answers your question about what happens next once we finish the planning study. First I'll start with the announcement. Every year we do a call for projects. This call for projects will be open at the end of October after we've adopted the 2050 LRTP. Our jurisdictional partners will have about 2 months to develop project applications, get them submitted to the MPO. The MPO vets those applications and we develop a list of priority projects. We'll share the draft list of priority projects with this committee in January. And then in March, we'll bring the list back for a final adoption. What happens with that list is we send it off to FDOT, we email Pam, we offer our list. And it's basically a way for the MPO to communicate with FDOT to say that these are projects that have been identified in our long-range transportation plan. We have an amount of funding that's been dedicated to these projects. And we want you to consider funding these projects with the MPO discretionary grants. Then when a project does get programmed, it shows up in the work program. So you'll first see it in the draft tentative work program, and then it becomes part of the adopted work program, and you start moving on those projects. So it's kind of cool, the agenda here, all the pieces fit together with Ed Smith. There are several projects out of Ed Smith that are in the 2050 long range plan. So for example, 12th Street is an example. Once the LRTP is adopted in October, the city of Sarasota and Sarasota County would be able to submit a project application saying, we're ready to start pursuing this project and move it from the planning phase into the design phase. So that's just one example of how that works, and once it's programmed, it's into the draft and report program. We do this every single year. We do it in partnership with our jurisdictions. And it just helps FDOT understand where the local priorities are for projects and funding. So that's the timeline moving forward. We'll give you a notice when that's open, and in January, you'll see a draft list.
I have a couple questions. The way you presented that to us was that almost simultaneously, you get the project from the community. You've already prioritized it. Is there a little more to that than? They're gonna submit you a raw project, right?
More or less. Some projects are a little bit more raw than others.
Okay.
So some.
But you have a prioritization process you go through before you put the list out to FDOT, right?
We do. So all the projects in the LRTP have been prioritized to start. And then every year we go through a prioritization process. It's basically a scoring web tool with layers of data pegged against performance measures that are tied to the 2050 LRTP. So every project gets scored according to those performance metrics. And it spits out a score that says this project scores 8.3 compared to another project that scores, 2.3. There's 8 different performance metrics, and they're all tied to the goals and objectives that were identified in the LRT.
You said one other thing that tripped my mind here. Let's go back to Ed Smith project. So that's a planning study that multiple projects are gonna come out of. And you stated they're already in PD&E because they've been in a planning study. So they're already classified as in the PD&E stage.
No, so they'll be pursuing funding to enter the PD.
Okay,
phase.
that's what I thought, but the way you presented it sounded like it's a planning study, so they've already started the P part of PD&E.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Some projects, some projects
Don't need PDAs.
don't need PDs.
It's where it gets real confusing.
Somebody did PD&E.
No, they're like, say you're adding on to a sidewalk.
Right.
You don't need.
You're doing a traffic signal.
Yeah, you jumped in design. So I think it said some of them are prescribed and Nate and I could go tomorrow and say, this is what we want to do. We'll say, okay, that's feasible. Others require years and years of study.
It's going back to Pam's video where the PD&E.
One of the things in the, that we always hope for in the reauthorizations that normally occur every 5 or 6 years is that there will be, improvements to the project delivery process that help, streamline things. But you don't want to have a project with major environmental impact just zip right through, but some of these projects programmatically, because they don't need any right of way, or they're a safety project or a bicycle pedestrian project on public property, they should be able to, shortcut some of that review process as long as there's neighborhood support, jurisdictional support, et cetera. So that's one of the changes that we look for every time, and sometimes they make improvements and, sometimes not. We don't wanna increase red tape, and we don't wanna push through projects, bridges, they're always gonna require a pretty high level of review. Sidewalk projects and, improvements that are designed to support a jurisdiction's placemaking activities and economic development and community development. Let's try to get them delivered more quickly.
Yeah, but some of those sidewalks can be very complicated.
Yeah, if they're over a bridge, I mean. So.
They require right of way or something like that, then
And I'll also add that not all projects, they don't need PD&E, sometimes the local agencies will, for example, push a project through the design phase and they'll just come to the MPO for construction phase, for example. So we also look at what level of completion the project is and how shovel ready is it as well.
So just to summarize, the call for projects will come out at the end of October. We'll see that list of projects that are January. But in the meantime, if any of our committee members are communicating with their agency, let them know that they need to be ready for submitting their applications in the next 2 months.
And they were all told this morning, so.
They're all-
This is-
Ready.
That's the other thing, from my standpoint, I don't get a lot of feedback from my agency.
So, yeah, no, but
Some, I think some of us might be
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
pipeline to their agency to let them know what's going on.
Right. Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
for context, since we do have new members, we recently also did a study up in the Bradenton area. And, you know, we called it one of the baseball studies because it was geared to what can the MPO do from a transportation infrastructure and investment standpoint to support the local community, the city and the county, in their placemaking efforts related to LECOM, I believe is the name of the stadium these days. So, and we've identified, you know, lots of safety, access, movement improvements that might be. Some of them are ones that the city may do on their own or through their redevelopment agency. The same thing with this. A lot of these types of toolkit solutions identify potential fixes or improvements that could be applied to other similar types of facilities, such as around the fairgrounds, south of Fruitville Road. So we're trying to do things that have more than just one application. And some of those projects in Bradenton are being, they're seeking funding for the projects either directly through the city or through the MPO process.
Anything else? Thank you, Nina. Item 3 is upcoming planning studies, Ryan.
Yeah, and this is purely informational for you all. I just want you to all be aware that as we're wrapping up our long range plan, we're heading into, I would consider the implementation portion of what we do at the MPO. We spent the last 2.5 years coming up with the overarching vision. And the 5 studies you see listed here are us going out and implementing them. So we're currently in conversations with a number of consulting teams looking at approaches to some of these studies. We will certainly look for your all's feedback as well as by the advisory committee and this work as we kind of develop the scopes and the process here as well. So you'll see some of the posts go out about scopes and the work that we're doing related to these. They vary levels of complexity similar to a lot of our projects. Some should be 6 to 8 months and others might be up to 2 years. But we are taking immediate steps into implementing our long range plan. So keep an eye out of that and you'll see updates over the next several years on these.
So I assume you have some budgets and you can only do so many of these studies.
Correct.
Do you have a ballpark of how many studies you're?
We'll be able to do all 5 of these in the next, starting in the next year.
5 of them you have?
Yes.
Okay.
And once again, some range in hundreds of thousands and down to 50,000. They range entirely in complexity and timeline and overall involvement from the consulting teams down to the number of meetings they have to attend, et cetera. So said we'll be hoping to kick most of these off by the end of this year, early next year.
I'm just curious, from being a previous consultant, do you have one staff member assigned to each project, or does everything go through you?
We have a project manager, project and they let me know if it's something going on. They let me know.
Up to you.
They let me know if something, if I need to know about something. But no, we work very closely. Like I said, we consider our teams extensions of what we do here. And we work close together in a lot of these. Yeah.
Any comments or questions about the planning studies coming out of the 2050 long-term plan?
Okay. Thank you.
We need to go to the election thing now.
We still do not have a quorum.
We got it.
We do.
Okay, I was gonna ask you,
We only have 8.
do I need to make some sort of statement for the record that we had a quorum at some point? We don't have a quorum, so.
We don't.
Wait,
I thought we did. I'm counting 8, 9.
Isn't it?
because Kurt online? Doesn't matter.
Can't vote.
Oh.
So then those things don't work.
We have to, are we voting for you there?
And we're gonna look at that, there's potential ways, we're gonna look at that in the next year of legality of some of that, when we were in COVID. I could vote virtually.
Crazy.
Yeah, now it's a little bit more of a gray area, we've heard versions of. You can vote, you can be part of the quorum, but you can't vote unless you're in the room. We'll explore a lot of those, we're gonna reach out to our attorney and see what some of the. Just to prevent, if you are here participating virtually, you can be part of the quorum, but you just might have to be in the room to actually vote. We're gonna evaluate that possibility the next year, because I know it's not always easy to get here. You know, we wanna make it as seamless as possible, but we're restricted to whatever state statute says.
Yeah.
At this point, so. We'll work on that. So this, we can hold off on the
Okay.
fair vote until.
It doesn't have it on the agenda, we have it in my packet,
Yeah.
so.
We'll wait.
All right. The next thing on the agenda is runs around the table. Patricia, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just have a question. Yeah.
You go, what?
I was coming home today before I came here. And there's detour signs at 60th Avenue West and 14th Street. This is, I have no idea why. Because one of them points to go east on 60th, and that doesn't go through. That's a dead end. So I don't know where to expect people to go. And the other one is pointing straight down 14th Street. So I don't know if they're planning something on 60th Avenue that we don't know about.
So they've got the detour signs up and there's no work going on right now.
Not yet. We can check. You can go to 511 Florida.
I'll call Wade, he just called me during this meeting, I'll ask him.
Oh, he just called you during.
Yeah.
He'll probably go.
Just wants to know when I'm in meetings or not, but we can check with that and see what the timing is,
He's checking to make sure I said work.
maybe.
I don't see how they're going to keep us from going west on 60th.
We can check the MOT plan though, it'll let you know if, it might not be complete in its current standing either, if they're just putting it out or
Yeah,
pulling it out.
But
It might not be what the final rendition is, so we'll have to look into it, right?
Thank you.
might just be that up.
Anything else? Eddie?
No, glad to be here.
See you next.
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Nothing other than a lot of work has gone into what I've had the privilege of sitting and being a part of around this table today, and I really appreciate everything, the intention and the focus and just all of that gone into all of these options and opportunities for our citizens. So it's nice to be at the table. Thank you.
John, anything?
Good today.
I'm good. I got this up.
Right?
One good thing.
Same. And as far as me, it's my first attendance here, so I'm just trying to get a feel for things. My early in my career was urban and regional planning and urban transportation planning, and I'm more of a big picture kind of guy. And what I've gathered from today's meeting is more of a micro scale kind of thing, and not paying attention to the elephant in the room. So I'm just kind of curious to learn more about it, but when I went to get some of the information, I realized there's an awful lot of reading there, which I haven't read yet, so.
Exactly.
They might produce quite a few reports.
Yeah, we're happy to do that, and as we get new members on, I'd like to do and try to do I'll look at doing an orientation again early next year.
Okay.
I try to time those, I try to time those up at least annually in some capacity, because I know we've got rotating members, so give you a bigger picture. High scale approach to what we do.
Some of my work in the past was on state legislation, resulting funding. Want to see if I can give any value in that regard.
I would add a comment because we do have some new people. My personal approach, and I think some of y'all have heard this before, but of course, Longboat Key is small, 8,500 full-time residents and 20,000 during the season. So it's easier for me to do this, but I take the information back that I get here, and I try to get that out to our citizenry using HOAs, condo associations, things like that. I really haven't had to go to the commissioners meeting and make a report, but I could, if I needed to be, and then I try to solicit when I'm out and about feedback from them. I try to, if there's an online survey going on, I try to push that out through an email trail that I have, so that's what I do. And I think that's one of our roles. Our role here is to kind of go out to our community, get that information and get it back. And I'm looking around, Manatee County is huge. I don't know how you divide that up. I've got like 3 or 4 organizations I communicate with and so it's pretty easy. I can do it in 1 or 2 meetings, but anyway, that's just my approach.
I'm like Eddie, I just try to get, when I got on the citizen advisory committee, get the word out to homeowners associations,
Yeah, whoever.
Facebook, some other groups that this is who I am and this is what I'm on, this is what I can do. If you give me the data, otherwise I can't really do much for you.
Right, exactly.
Pass stuff out. So let's talk about the next meeting. There's a board meeting on Monday. That Monday, the 20th? At 9 AM right over here. I don't, is it important one of us be there or?
You're more than welcome to attend if you'd like, but no, not at this point. It's gonna be much of the information that's kind of the hope of this, we pass this to you all first, get genuine feedback and then make adjustments as necessary, prior to the board meeting. So they'll be getting the same information.
I would say that when I've attended, I found it pretty interesting to it's helped me understand where we are in this organization. So if you have time, you don't have anything else for you on Monday. It's been a morning
And
there.
our next meeting isn't until January. I noticed I got a notice that the meeting in November is canceled.
Yeah, we're gonna give you, November, we typically on a September, November schedule, but with the LRTP having to be adopted by October 26th, we moved it into October. So instead of making you all come here 3 months in a row, we'll take November off.
All right. Work on taking the summers off.
We do, I'm gonna try. I mean, the board already doesn't want us to have, June, July, August.
What's the date of that January meeting?
January 12th at 5 PM.
Oh, very good, thank you.
Hey, Ryan, I would clarify that the board meeting is across the street, development,
Yeah. If it's across the street, it starts at 9, it used to be 9:30. We host our transit meeting earlier now, so it starts at 9 and not 9:30.
I did not get the notice that the meeting is canceled.
The board meeting?
So I may not be on the distribution list.
Okay,
I also did not get any information on this meeting. I mean, I got one notice, but I didn't get any backup material.
okay, I'll confirm. That's online.
Yeah. All right, but I also didn't know to let.
I'll work with her. We'll make sure we get everyone that's new.
And maybe
On all the different.
Yeah, and then,
for some reason it didn't come from me this.
yeah. One last thing before we do go, we did formally close today, our office space.
I thought about that driving up.
Yeah, so this will be our last meeting here.
Oh.
They finally got their clearances. This will be a full-time FAA avionics maintenance facility going forward. So our uses don't combine too directly. So we're moving up to just about 10 minutes from here up on State Road 70, 63rd, right across from Manatee Technical College. Try to remain as towards the county line as possible. That's a requirement for us. And this time hopefully a bit closer to I-75 for our partners all the way down Northport and all the way up in Northern Manatee County. So that'll be taking place over the next several months. Our last day here has to be December 16th, but we're hoping to, once we get through these meetings and on Monday, we'll start formally making our transition over there. So you'll see a bunch of new notices and other things with our new address. And we'll send out many reminders prior to January of where the new location is.
How much improvement do you have to do at the new location?
It's done.
It's done.
Correct.
Well,
Yes. There was a requirement of we're not a construction agency, believe it or not, we have to have the landlord build it out for us, so. It is completed and, it'll be quite nice.
The real improvements can be done once we're in there, such as, whatever improvements to our current AV system, maybe we'll have microphones in the future.
I assume you were looking.
Cut out.
Or yes, he'll do the most.
Potentially, yeah, but that goes up costly. It only costs us about $2,000 a year right now to host our meetings next door. So yeah, we'd have to do some pretty major cost benefit there. They wanted about another $40,000 a year to keep Lord enough to pay for that versus for 6 meetings or 5 meetings a year. So I think if we can't fit it, we'll continue to host it at a publicly offered location.
There you go. All right. Well, that's it. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Which is.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Thank you, everyone.